I don't get it. I don't get why Republicans, some of whom I genuinely like professionally and personally, are going down the Bernie Sanders route when it comes to the UAW. Welcome in. Good morning. It's great to have you here on KCMO Talk Radio. So, Missouri U.S. Senator Josh Hawley, right? He's a friend of this show. Really enjoy what he's doing on behalf of the state of Missouri. A lot of respect for what he's doing and what he's fighting for in D.C. But this one I just don't understand. I don't. The Missouri senator was in Wentzville, Missouri yesterday, here in the state, and he was on the picket lines with the UAW folks who are striking. And I'm watching him, and I'm looking at social media, and, I just thought I saw a much younger, a much smarter, a much more engaging Bernie Sanders. In some respects, I don't take my word for it. Senator spoke on the UAW line, and here's what he had to say yesterday.
I'm saying that, if they want to go along with all this climate stuff, and if they being these companies, and they want to send more jobs to China, I'm certainly not going to defend them. My message to them is quit outsourcing, quit offshoring, stop all of their woke policies, all of their electric garbage, their climate garbage, invest that money in American workers. And if they really can't do both, they should go to the Biden administration and say that, rather than being cheerleaders for their pro-China policies. But listen, at the end of the day, I don't feel sorry for them at all, for the companies. They've got gobs of money. They need to invest in their workers.
All right, that was Josh Hawley yesterday in Wentzville, Missouri. He was on the picket lines with the UAW folks. And it's a very calculated, shrewd political move. But just like anybody who you ask, okay, what does that mean, right? Give me a number. Life's all about numbers. Give me the number that you think is fairly investing in the workers. No one ever gives you one. They just say, hey, invest in the people, help the people. And you know me. I like Josh Hawley. We probably agree on, 8, 9 out of 10 issues. You're never going to agree with a politician on 10 out of 10 issues, nor should you. You don't agree with your spouse on 10 out of 10 issues. Why would you agree with a politician on 10 out of 10 issues? But I'm hearing what Josh Hawley said there, and, it's kind of out of the Bernie Sanders playbook. Invest in the workers. Okay, what does that mean? If they're getting paid $18, $20, $25 an hour in some cases, up to $30 an hour. What does that mean, invest in the workers? Now, Josh Hawley is right when he points out that the climate change nonsense that is being promoted by the administration is not helping these car companies, and they should be pushing back on it more forcefully. But to then look at the companies and say that they're being woke, well, I don't know. I'm sure that Ford and GM and Stellantis certainly have an element of woke to them. Every corporate entity does seem to have that. But that's not really the point here. The point is their hand is being forced by, yes, the Biden administration, but also by the states. Remember, California is requiring all new cars sold in 2035 and beyond be electric, right? They are pushing that in the state. The largest state in this country has a plan in 10 years to only be selling electric cars. So the auto workers or the automakers have to prepare for that world. Now, I'm not expecting that to happen in Kansas or Missouri anytime soon, God willing, but you and I both know that it's not going to stop at California, which wants to go zero-emission vehicles by 2035 in all new cars. That's what they intend to do. And that's the largest state in the country. So the automakers have to react, which is why you're seeing them invest in electric cars to the tune of billions and billions of dollars. And yes, that is hurting the workers. Josh Hawley is absolutely right when he says that, the way they're handling the EV investment, the EV builds, by the way, overseas, that is not helping the American worker. Then somebody's got to get to the leadership within the UAW, local leadership and also national leadership, and get them to point out the obvious. That they are supporting, and they always do in elections, they are supporting people who are ultimately hurting their workers and hurting their future job prospects. But I'm not going to go out on the picket lines, right, with people who are getting brainwashed by their leadership, who then are giving them money from their dues to the political party that is destroying their future job prospects without pointing out that reality. And that's the part that, for all the respect and admiration I have for Senator Hawley, and I call him a friend and a friend of the show, that point has got to be hammered home. I know that, in the new populist wave within both political parties, including the Republican Party, everybody's trying to garner votes and enthusiasm from these types of workers. I'm just looking for votes and enthusiasm, if I'm a politician, from hardworking Americans who get it, who want to live the American dream, and who want to prosper and live a better life. I don't care if they're rich, if they're upper middle class, if they're middle class, if they're lower middle class, or they're poor. If you get it and you want to work your way up the socioeconomic food chain in this country, there is one set of policies that will do that and will do that well for you and give you the best chance. But as long as leadership for the UAW is continuing to absolve the same politicians who they support, who, by the way, are hurting their future economic prospects, I'm not going to be showing a lot of sympathy. I'm not going to do it. I'd be willing to sit there and say, let's have a conversation. Let's go back and forth, and let's see where there's commonalities here. I'm willing to do that. But what happened yesterday, I'm like, no, it's absolving the people that deserve blame for how we got here to begin with. So I was, I don't want to say disappointed, but, somewhat surprised by that yesterday.
I would look forward to California mandating, having a bill, mandating emission-free lawmakers by 2031. Perhaps right now.
Yeah, there's way too much hot air coming out of that Capitol in Sacramento, right?
If we started there, that'd be a good start.
That would be a good way to reduce emissions before you get to the vehicles. But as long as these states are going to continue to do this to some degree, and I can't imagine California is going to be the last, then, the automakers are going to have to, in some respects, make a move here, whether they want to or not, and whether it's efficient in the short term or not. They got no choice. So Senator Hawley in Wentzville yesterday, and he had some photos up on his Twitter page, and he did also take this page out of Bernie Sanders' book. He said, one worker told me it takes 3 paychecks to make his rent payment in St. Charles County, and he and his wife have 3 kids to support. Meanwhile, the GM CEO makes $30 million. That's a straw man. The senator knows better. That's a total straw man argument. I mean, come on. Yes, I do believe executives in corporate America need to be cognizant of what's happening around them. Like, I agree. I'm not here to support the GM making $30 million a year. Self-awareness is very much important. But to say, the guy who's trying to support 3 kids in St. Charles County takes 3 paychecks to make his rent, while the GM of CEO is making $30 million. Well, I'm kind of curious. I mean, where does he live in St. Charles County? What kind of, is he in over his head? I mean, there's no way that the cheapest place you could find, the most reasonable place you could find to house 3 kids costs 3 paychecks. I like that 3 paychecks? That doesn't even make, what do you get paid once a week? I don't even get it. If you're getting paid every other week or twice a month, it takes you a month and a half to make 1 month of rent? What? So there's a lot of this class warfare going on that's being embraced, by the way, by both sides of the political aisle. And when it comes to this UAW strike, it's very, very concerning to be going down that road. 913-408-7710. I know the Republicans are going for that kind of union worker who's had their backs turned to them by the Democratic Party. But before you embrace, you have to explain to them why that party has hurt their job prospects and has hurt the working class in this country. union and non-union. And there's far more non-union in the working class than there are union workers in the working class. 913-408-7710. 6:15, welcome in on a Tuesday morning. We got a monster show coming up we got to tell you about. Also, who's coming to Kansas City this week? Yep. We'll get to that next. Well, you guys know I'm a fan of Senator Josh Hawley. He's a friend of the show. We got to get him back on soon, by the way. But he's in Wentzville, Missouri yesterday on the picket lines with the UAW folks, and he sounds a lot more like Bernie Sanders in some of these tweets. When he writes here, one worker told me it takes 3 paychecks to make his rent payment in St. Charles, while the CEO's making $30 million. That's a straw man. That's what that is. Nathan's in Clay Como. Hey, Nathan, good morning. You're on KCMO. What's up?
Hey, good morning. How you doing?
I'm well, my friend. What's happening?
Well, I just have to say that I've been listening to your show off and on for some time, and I just think recently you've gone on this anti-worker, anti-union tirade, and I just think it's a little ridiculous, man. I mean, the UAW represents a lot of people in this country, not just the UAW memberships, but it represents the working class in America. And the UAW took a big hit quite a few years ago now, trying to help Ford, GM, and now Stellantis. And it's time for them to get something back. And the companies don't want to give anything back. And that is ridiculous. And I have to say that there's a lot of things that happen in this country that people turn a blind eye on when their side agrees to it. And I just think that you're kind of turning a blind eye to the fact that the UAW has done a lot to help the companies, and now the companies don't want to give anything back to them.
Well, as far tell me if I'm wrong, Nathan. I mean, they are offering over 20% pay raises, right?
Yeah.
So when you say they're giving nothing, I mean that's not a fair assessment.
Well, okay. So to be like this: when your contract is due, you probably have an agent that represent you. Do you not?
I do not have an agent. No.
To me, a lot of personalities, sports stars, TV, radio personalities.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's not
commonly have an agent.
It's not uncommon. It's not uncommon. Some guys do in this market. Yes.
So the agent would do the best they could and fight tooth and nail for everything that their client should get.
Correct.
And that's what the UAW is doing, and that's what a lot of unions are always doing. They're always just fighting for their membership. And it's great that Josh Hawley, being a Republican, has done such a good job of trying to support the American worker. He supported the railroad industry when we wanted to go on strike earlier this year. And it was great that he and Cruz and a couple of others did what they did. And I'm not a Democrat at all. Not even remotely.
If you were, that's fine too. I
just have to say that because when I share something on Facebook from Bernie Sanders, he's still a United States senator.
Yeah.
And when I share something from Josh Hawley, it's because he's still a United States senator, whether or not you agree with him or not. And it just sounds like you're bashing Hawley because he sounds a little Bernie-ish right now, and there's nothing wrong with him trying to help the American worker.
Yeah.
And I think we need more now than ever to support the American worker, because without the American worker, what else is there?
Well, hey, Nathan, I'm glad you hung on. I'm glad you called in. I'm going to add to that conversation, and I'll just say this. You know, the UAW has 400,000 members. There's about 14 million union workers in this country. And you might say, hey, that's a lot. Well, there's 157 million Americans in the U.S. workforce. There are far more working class folks who are not part of a union than there are folks who aren't a union. And by the way, I would say the difference between, let's say, an agent representing an individual and a union being represented by and large, by leadership that is overtly political. I think that's a little bit apples to oranges, but I get his point there, right? I understand what he's saying. But the other part of that, too, is it's much easier to negotiate on behalf of an individual because you can pinpoint what an individual brings to a business much easier than saying, hey, these, hundreds of thousands of workers, 400,000 workers in the UAW are all worth X amount of dollars. I don't believe that in the U.S. I think in this country, we all have our individual skill sets that are God-given, and those skill sets are then in turn worth something. And frankly, I don't want my skill sets and my worth being tied to anybody else. I want to be worth what I'm worth, not worth what somebody next to me on the assembly line also might be worth. I just don't have any interest in that.
How many times do we hear negotiations break down where a player wants to represent themselves and they don't like to hear how many errors they made and how many times they struck out,
yes,
et cetera, right?
That is
so
true.
That's the downside. When you're in the union, there's safety in numbers there.
There is. That's very true. John's in the Northland. What's up, John?
Hey, yeah, I do sympathize with the workers, but he's saying they made the concessions to help companies. They made the concessions to help themselves because those companies were on the verge of going bankrupt. If those concessions weren't made, they wouldn't have a job. They'd be out.
Well, that's a great point. That is an excellent point there, John. I'm glad you brought it up. I have a lot of sympathy for anyone who's in the working class in a very difficult economic climate right now. But you're right. Concessions aren't made 15 years ago. There are no jobs.
And I can tell you right now, if I was offered a 20% raise right now, I would go in and sign it because I would think my bosses had gone crazy and they'd been drinking or something. I'd be signing it immediately before it gets pulled back.
Thank you very much there, John. And here's the thing. I think if we took calls on that, 9 out of 10 callers would agree with you there as well. So Jill Biden's coming to town this week. We'll tell you where she's going to be and why. And get to much more with you. 913-408-7710. Happy Tuesday. Pete Mundo on KCMO. So the First Lady's coming to town tomorrow. Jill Biden is set to visit the Harry Truman Library and Museum Wednesday, September 27th. According to a press release from the office of the First Lady, she will fly into the downtown airport at 2:45, and then is going to head over to Independence. So Jill Biden's going to be in town.
She's going to miss all the beautiful splendor and the new airport and the whole thing. Huh?
She's not going up there. She's flying downtown. Probably using the same airport as Taylor Swift did the other day, flying those private jets. So she's going to be here. No word from the office of the First Lady on who's changing Grandpa's diapers while she's out of town, but not my problem. Her event at the Truman Library is going to highlight supporting civic literacy and education in the local community. She'll also tour the museum and meet with area high school students and teachers. And she'll give an address at a fundraising event for the Biden Victory Fund at 5:30 tomorrow afternoon. I guess our invites got lost in the mail to the Biden Victory Fund.
I went to the Jackson's Victory Tour, but I don't recall.
You didn't get that
to
invite?
The Victory Fund.
No. Yeah. I didn't get mine either. I don't know. Still time, I guess. Maybe I'll, get an unknown caller on my phone. It'll be Jill saying, hey, come on down.
I think it's down at the Town Topic. Well, grab yourself a burger.
Yeah.
Have a seat.
Do they do, those Impossible burgers down there? I don't think Jill wants to be seen eating real red meat, though, I don't know. Who knows? Either way, that's going to be happening tomorrow. So if you're going to be in that part of town, try to avoid it at all costs. I'm sure it's going to be a headache over there. I'll leave it at that. 913-408-7710. Dave is in Overland Park. Hey, Dave, you're on KCMO. What's up, my man?
Yeah, hi, Pete. I'll give you a viewpoint on General Motors from a union viewpoint. I worked in aviation overhauling 747s for 22 years, and we always made less than the guys at General Motors. And we could never figure that out because our job was much more responsible. And every Christmas, they'd get a $6,000 or $7,000 bonus, and we would get nothing while we were trying to buy all of our Christmas presents. And we signed off for every single thing we did, every tiny piece of work that we did, and it stayed in their maintenance record forever. And we still didn't make as much as them. So, I don't think General Motors are going to get much sympathy from the average American worker. They get paid better than most people. I always wanted the job at GM. I always joked to my friends, I wanted to be the guy who slid the ashtray into the dashboard of the car and made all that money. But I just don't see much sympathy for General Motors.
For General Motors or the UAW worker, or both?
The General Motors workers or the General Motors company, because the American workers bailed out General Motors several times. We never received a thank you. I never got a discount on any General Motors car that I bought after bailing them out. Mm-hmm. They've never done anything for the average American. So not much sympathy for the company or the workers.
Yeah, and, I think that's a very good way to put it, Dave. Like, I know when I'm ragging on the UAW here and their demands, it might sound like I'm pro-GM. I don't have a lot of sympathy for the automakers either, for the reasons Dave just pointed out. I don't. Like, I'm not sitting here, GM's got to make more money. Now, I do think they have to run a business, right? And right now, their labor costs are already 50% higher than their competitors like Honda and Toyota and Kia and Tesla. So that's problematic. But, go try to buy a, brand new pickup truck, whether it's Ford, GM, any of them. Brand new pickup truck, base level, is going to cost you $60,000. Think the average non-union worker is going to be able to purchase that today? You're going to go buy a new car with cash? It's going to take you 3 years to save up for that, right? And if you think that adding 40% to the labor costs is going to help the cause for the average worker, the average American, to go out there and buy one of these vehicles, you're kidding yourself. And that's why I brought up this point earlier. There are 400,000 UAW members. There's 14 million people in this country as part of unions. There's 157 million people in the labor force, the overwhelming number of them being working class folks. I'm on the side of the working class. Artificially increasing costs of these vehicles is not something that helps the working class family buy its next F-150. So I will take the working class every single time. But there's a way to do it, and it's not currying favor with political operations like the UAW. 6:40 on a Tuesday. So I just want to let you know we got a big show coming up here. We are going to have Mark Levin on the show at 8 o'clock today. He's got his new book out. We're going to be talking to him about Missouri gubernatorial candidate Jay Ashcroft at 8:50. And then we'll have an in-studio visit from KCK Police Chief Carl Oakman at 9 o'clock. So we're looking forward to all of those conversations. And then our buddy Dave Traubert, Kansas Policy Institute, at 7:30. And don't forget, by the way, Tirade Tuesday is coming up at 8:30. That is your chance to rant and rave against whatever you want. I know Mark Levin's going to do that at 8:05 for many of us. Mark should really be on our Tirade Tuesday segment, but he's going to be on at 8:05. So that means Tirade Tuesday is going to come up a half hour later for you. Everyone's still obviously raving about Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and what exactly that relationship is and where it's going to go from here after she showed up at Arrowhead Stadium over the weekend. Well, Entertainment Tonight, obviously I'm always on Entertainment Tonight. I don't miss an episode of that. I'm kidding. But
TIC, tongue-in-cheek.
Yes, thank you for clarifying that. Just want to make sure, okay? Make sure the sarcasm is clearly heard through the radio. Taylor Swift, according to Entertainment Tonight, likes that Travis Kelce pursued her, and the pair having a great time getting to know each other, according to a source. That source went on to explain that Taylor wants a guy that is into her career, does his own thing, but is also supportive and understands her. And Travis fits those qualities. Hasn't every one of Taylor Swift's boyfriends mostly fit those qualities? I mean, she's only dated famous guys in Hollywood who have their own careers. Like, I don't know why Travis Kelce is any different from any of the other guys outside of the fact that I think he might be the first athlete that she has dated, but they've all been successful in their own right. So when she says, according to this source, that she wants a guy that is into her career and does his own thing, but is also supportive and understands her, I get it. You got to tour the world, right? You're Taylor Swift. I mean, you're on your way to becoming a billionaire. I respect that. But I don't see how that's any different from the previous guys she's been with.
I think the other guys she was with were musicians, so they're more into themselves and their own music. I think maybe, possibly. That might be what she's hinting at.
Okay. Okay. All right. So you're saying that the fact that he's an athlete, he's always busy. He's working out, he's practicing, he's playing games in the fall, and then even in the offseason. The NFL players now, their offseason is like February to, early part of May, and then you got OTAs and everything starting up. So you're saying that because her former boyfriends, Mark, were fellow musicians, that maybe those musicians are cut from a different cloth. Is that fair?
Yeah, very arrogant and, things like that.
Self-righteous, self-important, love themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas athletes traditionally are more team-oriented, not me-oriented.
Yep.
All right, I see what you did there. I can buy that. Yeah, her ex-boyfriends include Harry Styles, Joe Jonas, John Mayer, Calvin Harris, Lucas Till, all these guys now that I don't know. Adam Young, Jake Gyllenhaal, I know. Yeah, okay.
Adam Young was Owl City. I don't think they ever officially dated.
Oh, I just did a quick Google search.
It was an interest thing. Yeah.
So it could be like a Travis Kelce thing.
Yeah, very short-lived.
Okay, all right. 913-408-7710, 643. Now the phones are blowing up because all the old heads are calling in. Hey, I'll let Taylor focus on her career. I'll support her. By the way, it should be fairly easy to support your spouse when they're on their way to becoming a billionaire. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, hey, honey, get back to the house. I'm trying to become a billionaire here. Leave me alone, you bum.
Wasn't Travis the one that also didn't want to pay for his ex-girlfriend's meals for like 2 years?
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that rumor. That Travis Kelce was it credited as part of the reason he broke up with his ex, right? A couple years back?
She wanted him to pay for some of the meals or something
and
like
he
that.
He wasn't paying for the meals. That's right. Good memory there, Mark. I forgot completely about that. Yes. Apparently he was like, prove yourself. I'm not just buying all the meals because I'm the multimillionaire athlete. I'm not doing that. What do you think this is, a charity? Oh, man.
Taylor's perfect for him in that way.
Taylor's going to be buying Travis the meals. Sheesh. 913-408-7710. Happy Tuesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. Coming up, who is the real victim in this Oak Park homecoming king, queen story? I touched on it yesterday at this time, but I got to clarify a couple of comments that I made on this front. We'll get to that next on KCMO. I just want to clarify this story from yesterday that we talked about at this time. And it first came up a week ago yesterday. And that is the story of the Oak Park High School homecoming queen who happens to be a biological male named Tristan Young. I told you about this big feature piece the Kansas City Star wrote on this, and the headline was, "Tear me down all you want, KC trans homecoming queen defiant amid tirade of hate." So I think that, I know that in 2023, everyone's trying to be a victim. People want to be victims. That's in 2023, to figure out a way to identify yourself as a victim. But Tristan Young, with the Kansas City Star's help, of course, is creating victim status where there is not any. If there's a victim in this story, it's the young women who actually wanted to be homecoming queen who are not because, a man became homecoming queen at Oak Park. But I made it clear from day one talking about this. I'm not here to attack a teenager. I'm not here to belittle a teenager. I think we have major societal problems that are, allowing things like this to happen. But I'm not going to sit here and rag on a teenager and blast a teenager and say, oh, my God, this teenager, what are you doing, kid, blah, blah, blah. They're children. I don't think we should attack children. But I do think that it's the job of adults to protect children in a decent society. And we're not doing that on this issue right now, as you have a portion of the country argue for minors to get, in some cases, injected with whatever puberty blockers they want and anything else because, they feel like there's something they're not. I have a problem with that because that's not adults doing their job, which is protecting children. And since the beginning of time, since the beginning of, human beings existing, we've always agreed on the idea of protecting children. Whether it's morality or through our laws, we've believed that. But now we've thrown that out the window, specifically with this issue. But I never endorsed, and no one that I really heard talk about this ever endorsed targeting the child here in all this, but targeting the culture that allows this to continue to happen. And it's not unique to California or New York. It's happening here at Oak Park High School, where for the second time in 8 years, a biological man became homecoming queen. But, when you read these headlines here from the Kansas City Star saying, tear me down all you want, the implication is that those of us who disagree with a guy being homecoming queen are somehow looking to tear down children. No, first off, this is about protecting women who actually, want to be homecoming queen. And we all kind of agreed that up until a couple of years ago, apparently, that the homecoming queen should always be a woman and the homecoming king should always be a man. But, somehow we've lost that. But it's not about attacking a child. It's about simply sitting here and saying, what is right by the majority of individuals? If you want to have a trans homecoming queen or something like that, different conversation. I don't think that's the way to do it. But if you want to have that conversation, it's a different conversation. But if we're going to have one homecoming king and one homecoming queen, I believe the homecoming queen should be a biological woman and the homecoming king should be a biological man. And that's it. I don't care what their sexual orientation is. I don't care about any of that. But I believe biologically they should be a woman for queen, a man for a king. That's not controversial. That's not difficult to understand. But since we live in this climate where becoming the victim is the play, becoming the victim is the way that you, one, get attention, and two, get sympathy, you can just say, oh my goodness, I'm being targeted. Well, the movement's being targeted through Oak Park. And what happened at Oak Park? The teenager is not the one being targeted here. It's just not what's going on. The text line is 913-408-7710. On the text line, Pete, this homecoming queen was voted on by the students. Tell me there's no indoctrination going on at that school. Well, I'm sure there is. But as we talked about last week on this issue, I'm sure there also was a portion of the student population that just, voted for the dude to be homecoming queen. They're not indoctrinated. They just think, let's be let's be funny and vote for the guy for homecoming queen. So I think there is an element to that. How much, I don't know. But yes, clearly there's also a large part of it that is indoctrination. That is, gosh, if I don't vote for the trans person for homecoming queen and people find out, they're going to label me a bigot. Oh my God, they're going to tear me down. I guarantee you that's part of it, right? If you admit to not voting for the trans person to be homecoming queen, well, you're going to be anti-trans. You're going to be called that by some people. I mean, that's the world that we have created. And yeah, this is, as someone who's going to be sending kids to schools here in the next couple of years, and yes, the plan is to, give the public schools in our area a shot. We've heard good things from our neighbors, so we're going to give it a shot. And I'm happy to do that. I want to do that. I want my tax dollars to work for me and my family. So we're willing to do that. But yeah, do I have concerns that stuff like this is going to be popping up, far too often? I do. And we'll be watching like hawks, I promise you that much. But I think it's a combination of things. I think that in a case like Oak Park, yes, there's indoctrination, and then there's also the wise guys who are like, we're going to vote for the guy for homecoming queen. That's what we're going to do. Okay. All right. Well, doesn't make you the victim. Text line is 913-408-7710. Pete, his parents must be so proud. Well, here's part of the story, by the way. Tristan Young, who won homecoming queen at Oak Park, Tristan's father, Jason, was a sergeant and 20-year veteran of the Independence Police Department. And in January of 2020, at 48 years old, he was killed by a driver of a pickup truck in a head-on collision in Gladstone. And then Tristan Young began apparently this transition. which also brings up an entirely different story where when this stuff is happening following a major serious life trauma, what does that tell you in part about the connection between those two things? I'm not here to break it down like a psychologist. I will just note that I don't think that timeline is a coincidence, that somebody has serious trauma in their lives as a child and then reverts to this. 2 minutes till the news. After that, I cannot wait for what's going to be on TV, politically speaking, in November. It's not a presidential debate. We'll get to it next. I'm warning you. I'm warning you that you have heard this here first. A new show that is going to start getting an enormous amount of attention in this country because it's now available on HBO Max as of like a week and a half ago. And now it's being written about. Hollywood Reporter is writing about it. And I happened to stumble upon it in my barbershop last week. The show is called Naked Attraction. Have you guys heard of this?
I did see like one promo for it, I think.
Okay. All right. Mark's very quiet in there. Mark's like, I've seen the whole series.
I think my wife's brought it up, but I have not.
Okay. All right. Well, Naked Attraction is a show that was on the other side of the pond. British show. Wasn't available here in the U.S., but now it is. It was quietly added to HBO Max in the last couple of weeks. And, well, rather than me try to describe it, let's just play the trailer.
In this dating show, we go back to basics.
Are you ready?
Bring it on.
And start where a good date often ends. Naked.
Don't know where to look.
Have you ever been faced with six? No, but I feel like I should have done.
What do men and women really find physically attractive?
Wow. This is fantastic.
And could picking a partner based solely on their natural beauty
Could be a grower.
help us find the one?
I've never met anybody like this before and I don't know where to look.
Let's find out by dating in reverse.
Who are you going to pick for your date?
This is the hardest decision of my life. Oh my God.
Naked Attraction.
Okay. So in case you didn't get the gist there, this show works the following way. There is one contestant that is a man or a woman. And then that person, let's say it's a female who is, trying to figure out who they want to date. That female is shown 6 different naked men from the waist down. And then she eliminates one based on simply the waist down. And then she gets to see their entire faces and bodies. And then she eliminates another one based on their face and bodies. By the way, these people are all standing completely nude on this stage. And then after that, she gets to hear their voice, and she eliminates 2 more. And then, once you're down to the final 2, you get to basically have a 2-minute conversation with each one, and then you got to pick who your winner is going to be. And then you go out on a date with them, like in clothes and stuff. So the whole dating process is in reverse of how it typically goes. The Hollywood Reporter wrote about this yesterday, headlined, Naked Attraction, brutal full-frontal nude dating show quietly added to HBO Max. They start off the article by writing, it's like being on Tinder, but so much worse. One of the UK's most infamous dating shows was quietly added to HBO Max streaming service last week, and it's already causing quite a stir. Now, last Thursday, I go to my barbershop. It's 2 guys in Kansas City, and they usually have on like Office reruns, Seinfeld, maybe a movie. And I walk in and there's naked people on the screen. I'm like, what are you guys watching in here? And they're like, oh man, dude, this show. And, I love these guys, but, sometimes I question their judgment. They cut a great head of hair though. But I'm like, what are you doing here? Well, man, this show's everyone's talking about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't come to the barber to stare at naked people. All right, I'm not here to do that. But they're like, man, we've watched it like twice on loop. It's wild, man. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I just, I'm not trying to be a prude, but I'm just sitting there like, why do I need to look at this? And now social media is starting to talk about it. You're getting it written on by the Hollywood Reporter. And I'm telling you, I mean, it's bottom of the barrel, by the way. You think the TV in this country is bad? Apparently, the UK has got it way worse, as far as I can tell. I mean, this is absolute hot garbage trash. But in this country, more people are probably going to watch this thing than watching Gavin Newsom debate Ron DeSantis on November 30th. And that tells you all you need to know about where the country's at right now. We'll get 5 million people watching Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis debate the future of America. Meantime, dating shows where you stare at naked people from the waist down is going to get like 25 million people watching this thing on HBO Max.
Which will tell you everything you need to know about the future of America.
Well, yeah, bingo.
Yeah,
ding,
right.
ding, ding.
Yeah.
That's exactly. Oh, gosh.
Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, don't even get me started. Don't even get me started. But just know you heard about it here first. Like many things, you hear about it here first, John.
Yeah, they're always looking for ideas at the promotions table down the hall.
Oh, don't get them started.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Are you volunteering?
I am not.
Okay. All right. Mark's
Ain't nobody
awfully
wants
quiet.
any of that.
No. Oh, geez. Coming up, Mark Levin's going to be here just after 8 o'clock. He's got a new book out. KCK Police Chief Carl Oakman's going to be in studio at 9. Next, Dave Traubert, Kansas Policy Institute, on a good local climate change issue. We'll get to with him next. This is just too good. Thank you to Tony's Kansas City for flagging this so I could share it on the air. But the Kansas City Star yesterday apologized for the actions of one of its reporters. I use that word loosely with air quotes. It's written by Yvette Walker, and she is the VP of the editorial page for the Kansas City Star. So let's take you through this here. First off, the article just, oh my gosh, it's so smug. An open letter to our readers. It begins, I've always thought this to be true. The people in the media hold a sacred trust. The relationship you have with what you read online and in the paper you may hold in your hand harks back to the formation of our nation. This is what secures that relationship, our values, our ethics, our transparency of what we get right and what we get wrong. It's why we correct and clarify and why we check our sources. Okay, all right. I'm trying. Goes on the note here. When we make mistakes knowingly or unknowingly, accidentally or carelessly, we own up to it. And that is why I'm writing this today. If the Star spent as much time correcting itself when it was wrong as it claims to, the paper would be twice as big as it currently is. I mean, Yvette Walker, Kansas City Star editorial board, writes here, one of our opinion writers acted unprofessionally in the midst of reporting a story. Toriano Porter, writer at the Star since 2012, lost his temper and shouted as a potential source. Sometime in late July or August, Porter spoke with the driver of a tow truck from Autobot Towing in Independence about a story he had been pursuing on improper towing. A heated argument began with Porter on a public street and the driver in the cab of a truck. The towing company shared a video it said was taken during the argument by a non-employee. The video shows behavior that was completely unprofessional. Porter yelled and used profane words. When Porter believed he was threatened by the driver, he yelled back, taking off his hat and his scarf and approaching the truck as if ready for a fight. Now, what grown man wears a scarf in the middle of August in Kansas City? Right?
Charles Nelson Riley.
What is this? Are you on the job or are you going for a fashion show in August in Kansas City? I mean, I can't think of anything worse than working for the Star and wearing a scarf in August in this town.
That was during the heat wave, too.
Oh, my goodness. It was hot as hell in late July, early August around here. I know. I got back in town like July 27th. And I saw my neighbor last weekend for what felt like the first time in a month. And we're like, yeah, it's been too damn hot to step outside until like 2 weeks ago. Jeez. I mean, that says a lot about a guy. Rocking a scarf in Kansas City in August. Who are you trying to impress here? Anyway, no fight ensued, writes the Star, but the argument went on, ending with the two men peacefully agreeing to disagree. The video lasted 4 minutes and 13 seconds. Toriano Porter's passionate about his job, writes the Star, and he has been a powerful voice in Kansas City on behalf of the common man. The common scarf-wearing man in August in this town. But no matter what concern or passions Porter felt in that moment, his actions were indefensible for a journalist. Escalating is never the answer. There was also a second argument with a different tow truck driver sometime during the same time period. Also troubling is he failed to report the encounters to his supervisors, who were first made aware by Autobot and then by Porter. Because of these actions, we believe there have to be consequences. When his supervisors learned about the behavior, we decided he will no longer write about Autobot towing. We are also taking other personnel actions. Autobot has contested the facts of our reporting. We investigated the 3 stories published and have found only one small inaccuracy. Our story referenced an outdated Missouri law, which we have corrected. Blah, 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 blah. Porter responded to the incident saying, quote, "My behavior during recent interactions with tow truck drivers in Kansas City was unprofessional. I violated company policy, standards, and ethics and must be held accountable and responsible for my behavior. I apologize to my Star colleagues and editors. To our readers, I'm very remorseful. To the young folks who follow my work, I failed you and that hurts. You deserve better. And to my family, I'm sorry to have let you down. Star readers," writes Toriano Porter, "I'll be back with renewed energy and focus." That's a scary thought. "I remain committed to shining a light on public corruption and being a voice for the voiceless." Porter's promise is the bedrock of our mission at the Star and McClatchy Media. I look forward to his return and hope you will return to reading his columns as well. That is from the VP of the Kansas City Star editorial board, Yvette Walker. I know. You're not losing any sleep over this. Neither am I. I just find it so rich on so many levels.
Well, I feel for the young people that follow his work. There's a void now.
Yeah, there's got to be 6 of them out there, right?
What's going to fill that vacuum?
Yeah, I don't know.
I noticed no apology to the tow company, though.
Well, that's yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
Just saying that it was unprofessional behavior, but yeah, no real apology to the tow company. What about that? That's kind of bizarre, is it not? I do love the whole thing too about, shining light on corruption, being a voice for the voiceless.
All couched in these noble efforts.
Are you kidding? Stop, okay? I mean, the Star, all it does is push propaganda that the elite class wants them to promote and push. The woke elite class. That's all they do. That's all they're good for. And if they truly were interested in correcting wrongs and writing about when they screwed things up, the paper would be twice the size.